Hi there. Good morning from sunny Albany. We hope that everyone who could join, that you're safe and warm out there. We know that a lot of regions and districts, schools throughout the state might not be in session today. So just a reminder that all statewide webinars are recorded and posted to CBT support within 48 hours of the webinar event. And then we always share links to training information and webinars via the CBT listserv. And at the end of this slide deck, you will see a link to more information. How do you sign up to or subscribe to the CBT listserv? So first of all, my name is Heather. I'm Heather Klusendorf. I'm the head of the grades 3 through 8 ELA and Math computer-based testing program at NYSED. And Questar is hosting this event. We're going to talk today about the CBT simulations that are coming up on February 26th and March 5th. Now, we've titled this presentation, "A Day in the Life of Operational CBT." So that what we're going to do is the simulation is an opportunity to run a dry run, to mimic the operational CBT experience. So we're going to talk about what that's like, and we're going to use the checklist that was already posted on CBT support to walk through those steps for organizing a simulation on your end. Additionally, the slides that you see now are posted on CBT support. CBT support, your one-stop shop for all your CBT needs. So that URL is cbtsupport.nysed.gov, and you will find the presentation slides posted under CBT resources. Okay. All right, so let's get started this morning. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the computer-based testing program in New York State. We're so glad for all of you that have joined. We want to give an overview of the operational CBT program. This is the third year of operational CBT. And each year we have grown by at least 10% or more for schools that are participating or administering operational CBT. The first year, in 2017, we had 184 schools, which represented about 4% of the state. And those are schools that order the grades 3 through 8 ELA and math tests. Year two, last year, we had more than 650 schools administer the operational tests, and that represented more than 145,000 students throughout the state testing on computer. And it was just phenomenal to be able to have that much participation and to work so closely with so many schools. And year three, this next year, this spring, we have more than 1,160 schools that have ordered operational CBT exams. And we believe this is going to represent more than 250 students that will be taking the grades 3 through 8 ELA and math tests on computer. So it's really great, okay? And that's representing nearly 30% of all schools that administer the grades 3 through 8 ELA and math exams, okay? Oh, and I should note, before we get started, there is the option for you through the GoToWebinar to chat questions directly at us. When you chat questions at us, we've got folks in the room, on the phone, standing by to answer your questions, but also if we see trends and hot topics and we need to stop and have a discussion, we will absolutely do that. And then at the end of the webinar, when we finish, we're going to open up the phone lines and you'll get to ask questions directly to NYSED, okay? So chat us your questions and we'll turn that into an FAQ article on CBT support after the webinar event. Okay. Next slide shows you the main events, the CBT milestones. As we roll into the spring administration, there are a lot of different points, very important milestones that schools need to be aware of, such as when are students loaded to Nextera admin for schools to move into classes to set student testing accommodations. Okay, so this timeline is out on CBT support. There will be a link to it in the PowerPoint slides where you can find it. But this is something you might want to print this and put it on your wall. A simulation. One of the most important things is to keep it simple. We are conducting this simulation. You are organizing it yourself on your end. It's very different from the operational CBT exams. However, you should be conducting it in your school as if it is the real deal, right? Day in the life of operational CBT. But this is low stakes, like with field testing. If you encounter large technical issues, perhaps maybe your Wi-Fi batteries are low, which is a best practice to check those Wi-Fi batteries. Things like that, your students can close the lid and simply walk away. We're not scoring the students. Schools won't have access to student responses to review them because they're not going anywhere. This is a great opportunity for schools to be able to test their network. How does it work with 100 students downloading the test all at the same time and trying to respond within the computer-based test? Pro tip, it's a best practice that you don't have 100 students downloading the test all at the same time because your network may not be able to handle it. It's a best practice, and we'll talk about that later, that student start times are staggered. If you have more than 25 students, 25 to 30 students at a time, every 2 to 3 minutes should be clicking that select test session button. And we'll show you what that looks like, a diagram a little later in this presentation. So this is a great opportunity for schools to ensure that their testing devices are up to date. Do you have the most current version of the secure browser? And it allows you to really practice CBT. And for those paper-based testing schools out there, schools that have not taken that first step into operational CBT, this is a great opportunity for you to learn more about it and to have feedback sessions with your students after they take the practice test. But we also want to remind you that those practice tests, what we're going to use for the simulation, they're available now in the secure browser. They're available now in the question sampler. Okay? So there's no need for you to wait for the simulation, but because schools, you can use the instructional tools and the practice tests that Questar makes available now. And you can find all of that information on CBT support. Okay? And there are no administration workflows through Nextera Admin. You're not going to be logging into Nextera Admin or rostering students. What you will be doing is you will be downloading, installing, testing, and using the Questar secure browser that offers the Nextera test delivery system, which has all the buttons, the navigation features, the highlighter, those tools that students will be using on the day of operational testing. So out of the 4 systems that Questar makes available for our computer-based testing program, you will only be using the secure browser, okay? In the Questar secure browser, we're going to show you where that's available and also what steps you're going to use to take to install it. And in the PowerPoint, you'll also find a link to a video that assists you, that shows you how you would download and install the Questar secure browser. So we have video tutorials out there on CBT support. So the practice tests, as I noted, they're available now. They're the same practice tests that are available in the question sampler. And as a school, what you're going to do is you're going to pick which of the 3 practice tests are my students going to take in a grade level. Okay, so those are decisions, and we're going to show you as part of the steps. That's one of those decisions you're going to take. You're going to use the practice test logins that are already available. All the practice test logins, they're the same for the general population of students. For instance, for a grade 3 ELA practice test, a student would log into the secure browser with the username ELAG03 and the password practice. Pro tip, the passwords are all the same. They're all the word practice. Okay? No rostering of students in student data in Nextera Admin. And this might be a pain point, but there is no ability to pause the test and resume testing during the simulation. That's not the way it is on operational. During operational CBT, students can pause the test, go to the bathroom. We also have students throughout the state that have IEPs that might indicate that the student must take frequent breaks. But for this simulation, we're making do. We're creating the simulation out of already available tools that are just publicly available through the secure browser practice test. So quick fact, we get a lot of email at CBT support, and we love it when you share with us and you tell us what you need to know more about, because that helps us help the rest of the state. Questions you're asking may be something that somebody else wants to ask and maybe doesn't know how to ask, right? So the quick fact, how long will the simulation take? This is like a field test. It should only take one class period or 40 minutes. Okay, if students haven't finished at the end of your simulation period, just have them submit the test. Have them experience clicking on that submit button and seeing those screen prompts, right, for the fact that it indicates the student might have unanswered questions. Remind your students they're not being scored. This is very low stakes, okay? And please, we don't want to overtest in New York State. Absolutely not. This is a simulation, not the real deal, so students shouldn't be writing all day. Okay, 40 minutes, let's draw the line. Submit those tests. Login tickets, you can create those yourself with the already available usernames and passwords for the secure browser practice test, or you can use the templates. We're going to show you. We created them yesterday and posted them to CBT support. So we were asked over and over again, where did you get the student login tickets for the simulation? Well, guess what? We're going to create them for you. So we'll show you how to get access to those and what they look like in a minute. Student responses not scored. Okay, so this is a dry run experience for students to become familiar with the navigation features, with how do I type in the equation editor, how do I use the drawing tool, things like that. Okay, and again, the students cannot pause the test. So if you have a student who needs to go to the bathroom, just have the student submit the test, right? Maybe the student is done. You know what, but these are local decisions. You can decide what happens. Some schools may do what some of them did during field testing last year, and you may put a piece of paper over the student's screen while the student goes to the bathroom and then comes back. But only if, you know, it's really important for you that those students complete this test and get that full operational experience. The statewide CBT simulation checklist was launched this past fall, and it's been out there, and it is a 6-point checklist that'll help you as a school walk through, how do I organize this? How am I going to plan this? What do I need to do next? So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through every one of those steps for you, okay? But first, before we get to those steps, where is the Questar Secure Browser? The Questar Secure Browser is available for download from Nextera Admin. For those operational schools, you guys have already been given access to Nextera Admin. Either that or you're what we call our operational veterans. You've been doing operational CBT for 1, 2, I mean, this may be your 3rd year. You already have the secure browser. But for those paper-based testing schools, you may not yet have access to Nextera Admin, but guess what? You can have it. Just contact Questar customer support and ask. Principals are pre-populated for all schools in New York State into Nextera Admin. Okay, so principals and district test coordinators. If you existed in CEDRA when we populated Nextera Admin in September this year, then you will have an account that can be activated in Nextera Admin. So paper-based schools, contact Questar, and we do have a couple slides that have that information, but you can also go to cbtsupport.nisa.gov and just search on Questar, and the first article should be, how do I contact Questar? And it'll give you that phone number and the email address. Okay, so here you see in Nextera Admin, from the Help menu at the top on the blue banner toolbar, the Downloads is a page under Help. And there are secure browser versions for the 4 supported devices in New York State, which are Windows laptops and desktops, Apple Mac laptops and desktops, iPads, and Chromebooks. And after you get access to Nextera Admin, you're going to want to pay attention to, read, it's a great read, the Nextera Setup and Installation Guide. This is republished each year with fresh information on CBT support. There's also a link available from the Nextera Admin help section. But this is your step-by-step user guide. for how do you download and install the Questar Secure Browser. And it provides you with helpful links, step-by-step information for each device type. Additionally, if you need help with downloading and installing the Questar Secure Browser, you should be contacting Questar customer support, okay? Any assistance with the secure browser, just call them. They'll help you, okay? And here, if you want to take a screenshot now or you want to write this down, you can also find this on CBT support, the phone number for Questar customer service and the email address. And Questar customer service, they do have staff that are just for New York State. They are experts in our testing program. All right, let's get into those steps, right? Okay, we're going to take that checklist and we're going to pull it apart. And we're going to talk about every one of those 6 steps and where can you find additional resources to assist you with planning or making use of that particular step. So step 1, pick a day. There are 2 days offered for the CBT simulation. And again, you don't need to do the simulation on those days, but if you want to come together and you want to help us as one state prepare for operational CBT, then you can choose to download, install, prepare your school for the CBT simulation on Tuesday, February 26th or March 5th. These are the days that we're going to have a fully staffed Questar support desk ready, as they will be on the days of operational CBT. These are the days when NYSED, we're going to be in our command center in conference room 875 in Albany, ready and listening and ready to help. Okay? We're recommending that schools start the simulation between 8:30 and 9:30 or during the first session of the day. Do you have to do it during that time? You don't. It's most important that you run a simulation and you fine-tune, you streamline operational CBT in your school. But between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m., that's when most other schools throughout the state are going to be logging in and accessing the practice tests in the secure browser. So this is an opportunity for us to mimic what's going to happen on April 1st this year, which is the first day of the operational CBT English Language Arts Testing Administration. Okay? And this is all schools throughout the state, we're hoping. And you know what? You can start earlier. You can start later. It's no problem. Step 2, you're going to select a practice test. The practice tests are already out there. The same practice tests are available in the question sampler, which can be found via the Google. You can share this with your parents. So the New York question sampler offers 3 practice tests per subject per grade level and also allows students and schools to review the testing accommodations. Those same practice tests are available in the secure browser with the usernames and passwords that we're going to show you in a few minutes. So what you're going to do is schools take a look at those practice tests, right? Maybe there's one that you like that has like better questions that maybe you think your students might like more. But each practice test has between 10 to 13 questions, and it's a mix. They all begin with multiple choice, and they all end with at least 2 to 3 constructed response questions, both ELA and math. Okay? So pick that practice test. You're going to make sure that everyone in the school knows what practice test, what grade level is going to use. For instance, maybe you choose practice test number 2 for grade 4 ELA. Then you're going to make sure that all of your proctors know that that's the practice test you want students to log into. Students log into a different practice test on that day, that's fine, right? Low stakes, low stress. But we do want to try and organize it as closely as possible to that operational day of testing. And then you're going to create login tickets and make sure that those are available for proctors on the morning of your CBT simulation. Just like you would during operational, you would deliver those secure materials packets to the testing locations, classrooms. You're going to create login tickets. And here's what those login tickets might look like. So one of our top questions that we received is, where are the login tickets? What we did is we've created a template that is out there on CBT support. and it's a resource, CBT resources. And this article, at the bottom of it, there are different zip folders where you can open them up and download and use the Word document templates that use the already available usernames and passwords. On the left of this slide, you see what an example of the PDF that's already out there on CBT support that shows you the username for each secure browser practice test. But also you'll see that schools and students can get experience with some of those testing accommodations, such as text-to-speech. So we've got a template out there, and at the top, the school can indicate what practice tests the students are supposed to click when they navigate into the secure browser. At the bottom, you'll see the computer name. Now, the operational CBT login tickets that one will download and prepare for operational CBT, it includes the student's actual name, the student's NYSIS ID, but it does not include the computer name. However, we are making it a best practice in New York State that you should have your students write down their computer name on the login ticket. A lot of schools recommend turning over those login tickets on operational day and writing down the computer name. So this is helping us all get into that practice of making sure the students write down the computer name, especially important for those schools that might have laptop carts, right? You may need to know, like a student may fail to submit the test at the end of operational CBT. You may see that in Next Year Admin, and you need to find that computer, right? So here are our login tickets, and you can see at the bottom, I've actually filled one out. That's real. Look at my computer name. Okay? Schools can cut these up and use them. Okay? There are also special usernames for all testing accommodations, as well as the 5 alternate languages available in CBT Math. So as with operational CBT, the 5 testing languages that are available in operational CBT, as well as the paper tests, we also have practice tests with those alternate languages. So you can find those in these file folders on CBT support. You're going to find a template for all testing accommodations. Okay? For the simulation only, we need to note that there's no way for a student to be served a multiple accommodations, such as text-to-speech and reverse contrast. But for operational CBT, a student can have as many testing accommodations as they need. So we just need you to note this for the simulation. And perhaps if you can't meet a student's testing accommodation, perhaps that student is not doesn't need to participate in the simulation. These are the decisions that you can make locally. The online testing accommodations for those folks that are new to operational CBT this year, or you're our paper-based testing schools. This is a review of those testing accommodations that are available for operational CBT. Text-to-speech, that's where the robots read to the student. A student may be testing with headphones, and may be sitting in a classroom along with the general population, right? It's an opportunity for a student to feel independent, but these are local decisions. How does that student test? And the CSE, the Committees of Special Education, should always determine what is the most appropriate way to deliver a testing accommodation to a student testing in grades 3 through 8, ELA and math. Okay? So this is another value of using these practice tests. Read aloud by human is another testing accommodation available for operational CBT. Answer masking, which actually hides the answer, and a student must expressly click on that answer to see the answer for multiple choice. Reverse contrast, the screen is black and the font is white. Background color, there are 4 different background colors, such as pink, blue, yellow. And then initial page zoom, which sets a percentage of the test that is zoomed in from when the student initially logs into the test. All right, so I'm just gonna ask Clara, do we have any hot topics out there?
Do.
Oh, okay, we're gonna stop and
lots of questions about should all kids start the test at the same time?
That's a great question.
Any time of the day?
Yep.
What about elementary schools that might start a little bit later in the day?
Okay. So you know what? For those elementary schools, you're starting a little bit later in the day. Just try to do it in your first class period, right? Any chance that you can to actually participate in this in the CBT simulation, we're just happy to have you along for the ride as one state. So whenever it's most convenient for you, but we do want to try and mimic the operational day. So first thing, first class period, for instance, okay? And then for students starting all at the same time, what we're going to show you in a few moments is we're going to show you a diagram about staggering student start times. It is a best practice, not for Questar. Questar can handle the performance load of all students logging in and starting the test at the same time, but your own local bandwidth. There could be other things happening in your school, such as maybe the science lab is watching a YouTube video, or perhaps there are other things that are happening on the network, right, during the times of the simulation or operational CBT. So as a best practice, created the first year of operational CBT, we recommend that you organize students actually clicking the button to start the test at 25 to 30 students at a time, and then maybe at 2 to 3 minute intervals, okay? And then also a new best practice that was recommended to us by several schools this past summer, they shared with us that they're not only staggering within the classroom, but they're staggering within the school. They're like making sure that different testing locations have start times. Maybe they're 10 minutes apart, and then they're able to stagger inside the classroom. So we really appreciate it when our schools share with us what they do to make CBT successful. So we'll be talking about this a lot also on the upcoming roadshow that starts next week. But a slide will. Anything else, Claire? What else we got?
Sure.
Yep.
Lots of questions about the secure browser. Where do you find it? Do you have to uninstall and reinstall?
Right.
When is it available?
Okay.
How do I get to it?
Sure. Okay. So the secure browser downloads are available on Nextera Admin. If you are a school that is not an operational school this year, you need to contact Questar customer support. The principal of the school needs to do this to get access to Nextera Admin. Questar customer support will activate the principal's account, and then you should use, and then you can use the setup and installation guide, which is available on CBT support, and links. Links to all of this information are in the PowerPoint that's out there now. So you can get links to Nextera Admin, and you can get that phone number to call Questar. So you're going to download it from Nextera Admin on the downloads page, and then you're going to test it before making sure that you deploy it to all students. Download it on one machine first, make sure it's working, and then you'll plan for a process to download the secure browser on all student testing devices. And as a repeatable process, every January, we have an event where we call it Release the Hounds, where we tell schools that now is the time to uninstall and reinstall all of your secure browsers. It occurs about the third week in January each year. And that event has already happened. It happened on January 18th this year. So the secure browsers that are available now on Nextera Admin are the secure browsers that our students will be using for the 2019 CBT administration. Right? And right into CBT support. If you feel like you need a little more help, maybe you don't know who the principal is or you don't know who the DTC is, we can help make those connections for you. Sure, they know who the principal is, right, Clara?
I think so. Sure.
Okay. What else we got?
Heather, the computer name, where does that come from? We did put this on our sample login tickets for the simulation, but what about operational, and how should people be recording that?
Right. Okay. So I don't know how schools name their computers, so we'll look into that and maybe provide a little more guidance on CBT support.
But it's probably a local thing where they put a sticker on it.
Yeah, like on the my computer has its name on the lid. Yeah. Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
All right. Good one, Clara. And then what we recommend for operational CBT, a lot of our schools, and our schools started this. This is their best practice that they shared with us. They're printing the login tickets from Nextera Admin and then they're putting them on an index card, and they're having the students write the computer name on the back of the index card. Because that index card for operational CBT, it actually has the student's real name and NYSIS ID. Okay? All right.
Heather,
what else,
will these questions that are being asked of us be posted?
Absolutely. So all of these questions that are being chatted at us, well, we have 5 people in the room right now, plus some Questar colleagues that are answering your questions live. We also download all of the chatted questions, we answer them, and then we also add additional links and we post them on CBT support. It's going to be a lot. It usually takes us about 5 days or more to actually clean up those chatted in questions and then add additional resources, but stand by, they're coming. We love to share. Okay, anything else?
Heather, when do you want to talk about text-to-speech?
Oh, I think it's a great time to do it now.
So the reverse of that, speech-to-text.
Oh my.
Is that available?
Yep, these are great questions, Clara, and thank you everyone who's asking these questions. So text-to-speech is a mechanism or a delivery method for the test-read accommodation. And the committees of special education should meet with the students. The student is part of the CSE, and they should be reviewing the practice tests, and they should be determining what is the best method to deliver the test-read accommodation to a student who's testing on computer. It's possible that that method may be that the student tests on paper, but that has to be documented in the IEP and the 504 plan. However, there's also the ability for a student to use text-to-speech. This is where a student may be testing in a separate location with the sound turned up, and the test actually is read to the student by what we call affectionately the robots inside the Questar secure browser test delivery system. So you can see that now today if you go to the question sampler, okay, and you click on text-to-speech when the accommodations panel pops up. And then speech-to-text. We are getting so many questions about that this year. There is no mechanism or accommodation in the NextEra test delivery system for speech-to-text. So a school needs to determine what is the best way to deliver that accommodation to a student. What's the most appropriate way? We've heard from some schools throughout the state that the student might be responding verbally to speaking the response to one computing device that has speech-to-text software. And then there might be a human, either it's a scribe or maybe somebody who's designated to assist the student then with transferring those responses into the computer-based test. Okay? So no mechanism for speech-to-text. However, the robots will come for text-to-speech. However, your students also may prefer to have a human reader. Okay? So these are local decisions that you guys need to decide. And beginning on March 4th for CBT ELA, schools will be able to start selecting testing accommodations in NextEra admin when their students are populated. What else, Claire?
So Heather, for the simulation, questions about accommodations.
Sure.
What if the student has 2 accommodations, but for the simulation, like for instance, text-to-speech and answer masking?
Sure.
What would you do for the simulation?
Well, I would have a discussion or a conversation with that student and also with the CSE. Is it appropriate for that student to take the simulation? Is it going to cause undue stress, right? So think about these things because our students, they're the most important thing. They're the most important resource we have in this state are these students. So have a conversation, and it's possible that the student wants to just try out text-to-speech, right? But there is no way for dual accommodations or more than one accommodation to be activated in the secure browser practice test, right? So that student, before sitting for the simulation, students should be reviewing a practice test that has the answer masking enabled and one that has text-to-speech enabled, and maybe determining what he or she is most comfortable with, okay? But again, there is always the option not to participate in the simulation, okay?
And they only access this via that username, correct, Heather? So text-to-speech has a TTS at the end.
It does. Yes. All right. So let's go back and take a look at this. So if you guys notice on the right, these statewide simulation login tickets for text-to-speech, TTS, look at that username. The username is ELAG05TTS. That stands for text-to-speech. And all other accommodations have similar usernames. Like for instance, answer masking has an AM on the end of it. So the format for the username is the subject, G for grade level, the grade level, and then if there's an accommodation, there will be additional letters on the end of that username. And again, templates are out there that you can use to review those. Those are great questions, Clara. Thanks. All right, guys, let's get back into it. Okay, so now step 3. Make sure that you're identifying proctors and other simulation staff. Are you going to run a command center like we've heard many schools and districts do throughout the state? Are you going to have technical proctors in the hallways ready and willing to assist those active proctors that are in the classroom? And remember, there's no rostering to Nextera admin, so you're not watching screens in Nextera admin to see student progress as you will be doing on the day of operational testing. But make sure you have proctors identify, create a workflow internally. What if there's a problem with a student trying to log in, or maybe a computer won't turn on? How is that going to be communicated inside the school to the people that need to help? Okay, so again, these are workflows that you're going to maybe establish here as part of the simulation and then put into action on the day of operational CBT. Consider posting testing signs. When Clara and we go and we visit schools throughout the state during CBT field testing, it's so cute. We get to see all the different signs and the different things that schools do to try and make sure that the students have a secure testing environment and that they can focus. So maybe you want to use the signs. And plan to have scratch paper. So during operational CBT, all students are provided with scratch paper. For CBT ELA, they get one piece of lined scratch paper, and for CBT Math, they get one piece of unlined paper and one piece of graph. So if you want to truly mimic the day of operational CBT, you'll give your students scratch paper. Okay, and you can find a link to this article and the details, but this is also a snippet here you see on the screen of the actual advisement that's in the school administrator's manual from last year. Students don't hand in the scratch paper. It is only to help students feel comfortable during these years of transition, right? As a state, we're still transitioning. We're making that leap from paper to computer, and some students may simply feel more comfortable. But the scratch paper is collected and securely destroyed. Step 4, review your testing software and hardware. Oh, so important. One of the most important things you're going to do. You may want to have somebody in your school identified who is going to be that person who's going to download your secure browsers on all the student testing devices. That person who's going to be your technical expert. And you want to have this technical expert already identified for the simulation. And you know what? You may be in a small school and district where there's only one person wearing all these hats. Well, work with us and work with the Questar customer support team, and we'll help you become that expert that you need to be. So you need to make sure that you have the most current versions of the Questar secure browser on student testing devices. Think about your Wi-Fi. How can you test that in the school before the day of simulation to make sure that, 30 students in a classroom connecting to the Wi-Fi, that there's no problem, that everybody's got a strong signal. Think about Wi-Fi batteries, additional power cords for when students' computer batteries die. Maybe they walked into school without charged computers. It happens. And think about additional mice, other things that your students may need or you may need to have on hand. Step 5, let's prepare those proctors. So unlike the day of operational CBT, there are no teacher's directions for this simulation. We're making it up, folks. It's very simple. Keep it simple. But we need proctors to know first, there's no pause feature, very important, and you guys need to decide in the school, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle a pause? Are you going to put a piece of paper over the student's computer screen, or are you going to have that student simply submit the test? It's up to you. Make sure proctors know how to navigate into the Questar secure browser. Make sure they know what the secure browser looks like. The fact that students can't get anywhere, they can't go to the Google and look up a question when they're inside the secure browser. And let the students know that when they open that secure browser, when they log into that practice test, they're going to see a phony student demographic page. Okay, there's a little image of it there on the lower left. On the day of operational CBT, that demographic page will have your students' real information in it. And a student is asked, as part of the teacher's directions for operational CBT, to verify that that information is correct. And then also, you want proctors to be familiar with what do we mean by staggering student start times. We're going to, I think the slide is up, it's coming up. Here it comes. All right, but first, talk about teacher's directions. You may want to come up with a script, right? Maybe your proctors feel more comfortable reading from the scripts that are created by the Office of State Assessment each year. So the teacher's directions script, if they try to use the teacher's directions from last year, they're not going to match the simulation experience, right? Because we don't want the students to verify that their demographic information is correct in the simulation, because it won't be. Okay? So think about simplifying a script and providing it if you think your proctors need it. They may not need it, especially our veterans out there where you've done operational CBT for multiple years. You know how it goes down, right? You've got this. But you can also use step 6, and we're going to show you that in a minute. Step 6 in the simulation checklist is really all you need to do, the workflow for getting your students into the test, the simulation test, and then having them submit. Now, here it is, stagger student start times. Look at this, more art. So this CBT best practice, this is used throughout almost all our schools throughout the state for operational CBT. They use this, and it helps them. It ensures that they're not taxing their own networks too much, and that you're also organizing it so that you don't have a student who's up here in row 1 and a student in the back of the classroom in row 6 who are trying to log in at the same time, and you need to help both of them at the same time, right? I mean, these are best practices that are also organizational, tips. And it just helps to be able to focus on, few students at a time, this 25, this 30 students at a time. We have some schools that test large groups of students all at once, like say in the cafeteria or the gym, especially in our middle schools. So they definitely use this stagger student start times. So you can see here that the student is logging in. Here on this screen, it has the nicest ID for the student's username. Your students are using the practice test username, such as ELAG03. And then they're clicking yes on the student demographic page, which includes phony demographic information. And then they're choosing their test in the secure browser. They're going to choose one of those 3 practice tests that you have already indicated on that student login ticket. Okay? And then they're starting the test. There is no wait to start option in the simulation, that second to last slide, but this gives you a general idea of what it means to stagger student start times. Okay? Step 6, our final step. Here we have check boxes that are everything you need to do to organize the simulation on the day of the simulation. You're going to hand out student login tickets that you've already prepared and delivered to those proctors. You're going to have the students launch the Questar secure browser, have them log in. They'll choose their practice test that you've already told them on the login ticket or some other communication way, like putting on the front of the board. Those students will click that practice test. If you need to assist students with navigating through the test, right? Because proctors can help students with navigation. They cannot help students with, for instance, how do I use the highlighter? So do try to mimic the day of operational, but keep in mind, low stress, right? If you've got a student who's struggling, you help that student, because this is our prep for that day of operational when you really can't help that student, right? That student needs to, the phrase they use in the SAM is that the student needs to use your best judgment, right? We all know that statement. Students start the test, and then at the end, the students are going to click review on the upper left, in the Nextera test delivery system. They're going to use the review screen to see if they skipped any questions, and then they're going to submit the test. Okay? If you encounter technical difficulties, again, call Questar customer support, or use this as an opportunity. What would you do during the day of operational testing? And here are screens for what it looks like when a student's submitting the test. There are several prompts for a student to make sure that that student knows that they may have skipped test questions. So this is an example of what the review screen looks like. And you can see, hey, Billy, look, you got 6 out of 10 questions that aren't answered. And then when Billy clicks submit test, he is alerted again. Billy, you have 4 test questions. Did you really mean that? Okay. Once all students have submitted the practice test, consider hosting a feedback session. Find out what your students think. It is so valuable for us to hear directly, hear their voices, let them speak, let them share in this experience as we all transition to computer-based testing throughout the state. And you can send your feedback to CBT support at niced.gov. And just so you know, what are we doing here at NICED? We're going to be standing by. We're going to be in our command center. We're going to be working directly with Questar. Questar is organizing their Tactical Operations Center, and they are fully staffed for customer support from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, both days of the simulation. So they'll be ready to help, as will we at NICED via CBT support. Questar will be monitoring CBT traffic to its web servers, right? We're gonna use this as an opportunity for us to take a look at what it's like when everyone comes together throughout the state to download those tests and to use the secure browser all at once. So then we'll be working together with Questar to review feedback, to take a look at the data that we've acquired through this traffic, if there were any issues that arose. So we're using this too as a dry run. So it's not just you, it's us, it's all of us. We're in this together. After the last simulation, the second simulation on March 5th, we're going to send a link out to all users that signed up for this webinar and all users that indicated they're participating in the CBT simulation via technology readiness. And we're going to ask you for your feedback. And let me tell you, folks, we read it all. We love to hear from you. And when you speak up, when you share with us, you're advising the CBT of the future. We use your feedback to think about what more do we need to do as a state to transition all of our schools to operational CBT. A great way for you to stay informed of training, new content, exciting trends in CBT is to sign up for the CBT listserv. Subscribe! We'll send weekly messages and sometimes even more with exciting news. You can read it on the weekend with your Sunday coffee. Wouldn't that be nice? So subscribe to the listserv. Then you can hear from us all the time. Wouldn't that be great? Great for you. Yep. Okay. All right. Any questions, you send them to CBT support at niced.gov. But now, Clara, we're going to open up those phone lines, aren't we? Do we have some hot topics first that you want to go over?
Well, let's talk about, Heather, what do we have that they could pick up and use as parent information?
That's a great,
CBT in general, and then perhaps for the simulation.
Okay. So for our parents, first of all, there is a flyer out on CBT support that provides details on how those parents can review the question sampler and the practice test, so they can see what are their students going to be doing, using on the day of operational CBT. And then you should check with your regional information center or check with your district, because your parents in your region, in your district, they're specific. Their needs are different throughout the state. So for the state, we've not created anything like a parent resource guide with a Q&A that would serve for all throughout the state, but we have tons of resources on CBT support. And I do know that some regions have already created like parent letters. So that's something that we're hoping that locally you can create or ask around. Another district may have created one. And then if you need any help, if you have any questions, things that you feel like you don't have sufficient answers through CBT support, you can ask us. But the flyer, I just want to emphasize that flyer. If you go to CBT support at niced.gov, .niced.gov, and you search on the word flyer, FLYER, you're going to find the document that whenever we go to, when we're invited to go to parent forums, that's the handout that we provide when we're talking to parents. Yep. What else, Claire?
So Heather, as a reminder, this presentation is really about info on the simulation.
Yep.
What else might we have coming up for our CBT operational and field schools?
Oh, Clara, that is a great question. So guys, we love training, we love traveling the state, and we love talking because you can hear it now, right? So first, next week, we start our CBT winter tour, where we go on tour and we travel the state. We're hitting 8 different locations throughout the state. We start in Long Island, we go all the way over to Buffalo, and we try to hit all the big cities in between. But additionally, there's going to be more statewide webinars. There's going to be a statewide webinar for proctoring on March 20th. There's going to be a statewide webinar for to repeat that on-site roadshow content where you'll be able to chat us questions again during the webinar on February 28th. Okay? And there'll also be a score point training session in March where we travel the state again. We go to 3 different locations this year, and then also have a statewide webinar on March 18th. Okay? Now, if you go to CBT support and you search on the word calendar, you're going to find a list of bi-monthly training events. What's happening this month for CBT? And if you sign up to the CBT listserv, if you subscribe, we're going to tell you about when the training's coming up, how to register, has registration launched, when's the webinar happening? Lots of CBT support. I'm telling you, folks, that's your one-stop shop. Helene, I don't know, so our Questar colleague Helene, who is running this webinar for us, I don't know if we want to ask people if they want to hold up their hand and ask us a question directly. So folks, if you want to talk to us directly, you have a burning question, you can ask us live. We're going to open those phone lines. Helene will unmute you if you hold up your hand, and you can talk to us live here today.
Ann Collins has her hand up, so I'm going.
All right. Okay, Ann Collins.
Can you
hear us? How come? Yeah, you sound great. How can we help?
So I was at one of the road shows, and they said that for the text-to-speech that there was going to be 4 different options for voices. Has that changed?
That has not changed. So this year there's a big change that we made versus last year. Last year, text-to-speech, for those are operational CBT veterans, text-to-speech did not work if the school encountered a network connection issue. So this year, we've gone back to what's called text-to-speech offline. So if a student is interrupted while testing, maybe the network goes down or it blips in and out, the text-to-speech robots will still speak to the student and read the test. For that to work, each testing device, the Chromebooks, the iPads, the Macs, the Windows, they all have voice packs that have to be selected for the student. And there's a default voice pack. So there's probably one already selected on your student's testing devices, but we're going to publish soon on CBT support what the recommended voices are. But what you should be doing now is you should have students using the question sampler and listening to that voice, listen to the robots, and see if the students actually like it, right? Okay. Is it acceptable? Okay? Good question, Anne.
How do you change the voices? Because it's only defaulting to 1 when we're using the test sampler.
Yep. So you need to take a look in the setup and installation guide. And for each device type, there are steps for how you would change a voice pack and listen to those different voices.
And that you can use on the test practice then, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Once you enable that voice on the device, that's the voice that's reading to the student through the question answer.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
And you know what? If you've got feedback after you're doing that in your school, send it to us about text-to-speech and those robots. Okay, Helene, who else we got out there?
Bonnie Noble.
Okay, let's hear from Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi there. I apologize because You may have said this. I had to step away from
That's
the
okay.
head. So on the simulation, and we want to make it as clear as possible for our proctors at the simulation, we would say, let's say we come up with the practice of the student needs to go to the bathroom, go ahead and cover the screen with a manila folder, go to the bathroom. Will the test time out? And if so, when they log back in, will it be where they left off, or will they have to start all over?
You know what? That is a great question. So the secure browser does not time out just by virtue of its architecture. So, however, you could have a timeout set on that student's testing device. So you may want to, and during operational, what we advise, like going into it, during the Proctor webinar, we also go through best practices. And take a look on CBT support and look up those best practices. One of them is that schools need to turn off student notifications, and they need to adjust those student computers so that they don't time out during operational CBT. So you want to look into those things. And because if the computer does time out and the student's in an active secure browser, maybe you've covered with a manila folder and they've gone to the bathroom, they will be logged out of that secure browser and the responses aren't saved, right? So at that point, you know, if a student's, you know, stressed by that, you let them know you weren't being scored. You know what?
That's what I want to, yeah. I'd rather anticipate and just say, you know what, if you have to go to the bathroom, just submit and be done. I mean, we're using a Chromebook and the secure browser kiosk mode, so I don't think any of those things apply. Like, I don't think it's going to time out.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Good call. That's great, Bonnie. That was a super question. And yeah,
thank you.
Local decision how you want to handle that. Thanks. Aline, have we got anybody else out there?
David Doe.
All right. Hi, David.
Hello.
What do you got? Hello.
Just thinking back to a couple of years ago, is this going to test the Questar browsers or Questar servers, or is this just for districts?
One of the main reasons that we developed this CBT simulation throughout the state was to build confidence in the operational tests this year, because as many of you may know, there were technical issues during CBT ELA last year. So this is absolutely a performance test also for Questar. So when the students are downloading the test and when they are responding, those responses, there is transmission up to Questar. And you're going to be able to see that in the upper left of the secure browser, the offline online indicator. That's indicating, you know, Questar is serving that offline online indicator. And so, yes, we are testing those servers.
Excellent. Yep. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Good question. All right, Helene, who else we got?
All right, let's see.
Okay. And in the meantime, Clara's got a new question. Hot topic, Clara. What do we got?
A few questions are coming in mostly about the administration.
Sure.
Can you give kids more than one piece of scratch paper? Things like that. So what I would recommend is that last year's school administrators manual and teacher directions are posted both on CBT support and on the Office of State Assessment's website. I'll give you a gold star for
gold star for anyone who can find it on OSA.
No, but anyway, that's an excellent resource right there.
It is.
As well as last year's Proctor's WebEx is still available on CBT
That's right.
support. Is it not, Heather?
It sure is. And there's also the webinar presentation is also there from last year's Proctor webinar. So you can watch that. You can organize and watch that together in your school. But we also, the Proctor webinar is, we also post the big FAQ, like we were talking about at the beginning, for all questions that are asked during those webinars. So you can find Proctor FAQs as well as the presentation to review.
So not only are we going out, as Heather mentioned, on our winter tour starting next week, lots of information can be found on your one-stop shop with
CBT support.
Right. Lots of information.
Well, and links to anything that's really important, right? Like that SAM, that school administrator's manual, the teacher's directions. We have what's called a quick links section in CBT support, and you'll find direct links to that. And last week, we just posted the testing accommodations for students with disability. It's a manual that was published by the Office of Special Education last week. You can also find that in the quick links section.
Last year it was.
In February, 2018. Right. Sorry, yep. All right, Helene, what do we got? We got another, maybe we'll take another 2 questions.
Okay,
out there before.
Michael Sullivan has a question. He has his hand up.
Oh, hi, Mike. We know Mike Sullivan. How are you? What do you got, Mike?
Hey, Heather, how are you?
Good.
So, I guess this really isn't a question, and I posted it already, but
Okay.
with the human read portion of the test, there's no paper that's involved. I mean, as far as like trying to find the questions to download, I tried downloading myself, and I've done it already. You literally have to save each question individually as a PDF.
Sure. Yep.
So for anybody that's out there that's trying to find the paper copy, you're not going to be able to find the paper copy. It's more or less having to save each question as a PDF and then printing them up separately.
That's a great tip.
That's what
Mike.
I noticed. So.
Yep. And that's really important to note because as with in the operational CBT, we send paper copies for those schools that have test read quantities so that they can make the decision, are the robots going to read to the student, or am I going to use a paper copy and have a human reading to the student? But for this simulation, we don't have those paper copies. These are all previously released state test questions that are available on Engage New York. So you would have to save each one. And one thing we want to do is we want to make sure that that proctors or whoever is reading, the human is reading to the student, that they're not reading over the student's shoulder. Let's give those students some space, right? Not reading off the screen. Understand that for this simulation, that may not be possible. You're just going to make the simulation happen the best way you can. But for operational CBT, all test read schools that indicate test read quantities, we ship paper copies to you so that you can determine the best way to deliver that accommodation to the student. Thanks, Mike. Nice clarification. All right.
Helene, Patrick Burke.
ENL students have accommodations allowing them to use of a dictionary. Will they have actual dictionaries, or will there be electronic dictionaries offered?
That is a great question. So there are no electronic dictionaries available within the computer-based tests. And this isn't just for the simulation, but also for operational. So those physical dictionaries should be provided to students as they are for daily instruction.
Okay, may I continue? I have a few more.
Yeah, please do. Go ahead. Yeah.
If a student selects the language of the test as English, but then determines they need the Spanish version partway through the exam, can it be changed?
So there are two parts to that test question. Okay. First, I'm going to talk about what happens during operational CBT. So for operational CBT math, a student that might be using the Chinese version of the math test is seeing the Chinese version on screen. There is no way on screen, we have limited real estate on that screen, for a student to go between maybe English and Chinese as they do with the paper test. So for our students that are testing in alternate languages, first of all, you're going to make the decision at the school, what is the best way to serve the accommodation to the student? Are they testing on English, or are they testing on Chinese? But if when that student's testing on Chinese on screen, the student has an English paper copy with them during operational CBT. Now, for the simulation, we don't have anything like that. So you would also have to consider whether or not you're going to print each test question in English and provide it to the student for them to have the English and the Chinese, for instance, copy with them.
If if a student has the test read, will the test read function be read in their native language, Spanish, Chinese?
Great question. It is only in English. Test read is only in English. If you need test read in a different language, even during an operational test, that's oral delivery for that student.
Okay.
Yep.
Those are
and then
questions.
I think you asked one more question, Patrick. You asked about what if a student makes a decision while they're in the test and they want English, they're in the Chinese test.
Yes.
So for the simulation, you can just have the student log out. None of their responses are going to be saved, and then have them log into the English. But what we want is we never want a student to sit down on a day of testing, even with the simulation, and be trying something out for the first time, right? So you want to take advantage of those practice tests. And even on the question sampler, all of the alternate languages are available for a student to try out. But during operational tests, if something like that happens, that's what's called a form reset. And then the students' responses may not be saved because we spiral electronically up to 16 different versions of a math test electronically within a school, within a classroom. So that could take a while to have that form reset. So that's, again, the value of this simulation, the value of the practice test.
Colleen, could we take one more question from Erica Beasley?
Oh, Erica, we know you. Hi, Erica.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. I'm actually wondering if it's possible that we get from Questar some screenshots of the different error messages that we could see, that we'll see, because some things that happened last year where we had these error messages that were really more adult. They look more adult-like, and would help us to be able to show our kids if they see that, so they won't panic.
Erica, I can look into this. This is Helene. I can look into this. I know we have some of those in one of the manuals. I think it is either the SAM or the same directions, but we can look into that to add more.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. I mean, and I had made a suggestion last year as well, if those error messages could be more kid-friendly. It'd be very helpful, like if you had a dragon with, like, you know, smoke coming out of its nose or something, as opposed to these kind of alarming looking messages. It would certainly help with the test anxiety.
Okay, good recommendation. I'll add that to our list. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any other questions, please contact CBT support or contact Questar, and we can help you. Thank you for your time today. I know we ran over a little, but it was all very good questions. Let us know if you have any questions, any inquiries, and have a good day. Stay warm out there and be careful.